We are live. Welcome to Inside Scoop with Sue. And I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, where there's snow outside. I don't know. Where are you, Heidi?
I'm in New Jersey, and it is 35 degrees today, really cold.
Yeah, it is. My birthday's on Sunday. There's often snow on my birthday. So even
Happy
though I want to
birthday.
say this is insane, I have lived through many birthdays of snow in the
Happy
end of April.
birthday.
So crazy.
So,
Okay, so today I'm here with Heidi Miller, a speech and language therapist with a focus on feeding therapy. So
yep.
you have a very niche specialty. Can you just tell us a little bit about how you ended up here?
Certainly, yes. Speech pathology is a very broad area, and I do. Right out of grad school, I ended up in a private clinic working under somebody who loved feeding. And initially, I actually ended up in the NICU with babies, and then those babies become teenagers. And I just found after doing the babies and after doing a lot of the, progressing through foods, I did a lot of the oral motor kind of stuff. And I found my area, what I just loved the most was working with the older kids that were a little more cognitive and helping them move through and feel safe and comfortable learning to eat new foods. And it just became a passion of mine of this, what we call expanding repertoire. I also am a certified oral facial myologist, which is additional training that kind of goes along with the speech stuff. And that helps me see the feeding through yet an additional lens. And I do still love my speech stuff. I have some other specialties in there, but feeding just became a passion of mine. And I actually authored a protocol to help other speech therapists and occupational therapists help older children with feeding problems, because so many people think feeding problems, they think the little kids, like, how do I get my toddlers to eat? But it is not only little kids. I have kids now that are going to college. They're getting ready to go to school in September, and their parents are like, how are these kids going to dorms and being on the feeding program, and what are they eating? And they are in my office now. So I work with a lot of teens who are intrinsically motivated to learn to eat.
Well, on a separate note, we talk a lot about finding your passion. And one of the things that you can really tell when someone does is they get more animated when they talk about what they love. And you absolutely just did that. Like, as soon as I asked the question, your arms were going and you were so excited. So yay for finding something that gets you all excited.
Makes a difference.
Yeah. So tell me, let's start, because I saw what you do and I was like, I don't even know what that means. So what constitutes a feeding problem?
What constitutes a feeding problem is when you have a child who, first off, really only eats a couple of foods. It's a challenge for them. In the teen world, because that's really your audience, in the teen world, it's the person who, let's say, neurotypical, because I also work with the medically involved kinds of kids, but let's just speak general neurotypical. The kids that, their friends, they're hanging out with their friends, they're getting ready to decide what restaurant they're going to go to. And your child just, what am I going to eat there? As they become more independent, they're going to sleepovers, they're going to hang out, and the parents are just ordering in whatever they're ordering in. They're ordering in from, the palates start to get more advanced. It's not only we're getting pizza pies anymore. The parents start to take them out for more advanced meals, and the kids are just, there's nothing she'll eat at that restaurant, there's nothing he's going to eat at that restaurant. There is the flag of a problem. When you're going to have a group of kids over and 12 of them are going to eat something, and you're ordering something special for Sally because there's nothing that there's going to be there. When feeding is stressful, when the child is sitting with the family and, get that away from me. I cannot stand the way it smells. It can't even be anywhere near me. Don't let it touch me. When there's just a disruptiveness and anxiety, when they don't eat an entire food group, when they only eat the same thing over and over and over again. These are causes for concern.
Okay, so that's so interesting, because I have a kid who held us hostage with food, and everything you're describing, but we never considered it as a problem. So tell us,
I wouldn't have been able to help him.
We found it supremely frustrating, but we never thought that there was someone out there to reach out to. So what are the reasons? Like, we'll use my kid as an example, who eats pizza and red meat and literally like nothing else outside of that. Not literally. There are a few things outside of that.
Right.
But so what are the categories, the buckets that you put different stories that you hear into?
I could probably guess the other things that he eats, but
Potato
so
chip.
that would have been on my list. Bacon,
Yeah.
maybe. So when a person comes to me for a feeding eval, the first thing I do as an orofacial myologist and speech therapist is I look in their mouth and I do a very, very intense oral exam, because I want to see. I'm not a believer that these kids are picky just to be like difficult for their parents and pains in the butts. I think that there is something underlying that caused this, and then the anxiety piece lies on, ends up on top of it. And the anxiety down the line ends up being a very, very real piece of it, but it started somewhere. I look in their mouth, I check their tonsils, because if you can't breathe, you can't eat well. So if you don't have good pharyngeal space, then that's going to make you uncomfortable. That's going to tongue thrust. That's going to cause a problem. I look and see, is there tongue tie? I'm sure you guys have heard of that. Like if their tongue is pinned to the bottom of their mouth, a lot of times people will look for the tongue tie in front and they'll say, oh no, there's that's an anterior tongue tie when it's in the front, when you see that hard. But that's not the only thing I check for. I look also for what we call a posterior tongue tie, which is when the tongue is tethered further down. If a child has something like that, they're not able to manipulate the food correctly in their mouth. One of the signs that you see for that is if you have a child that always needs liquid with their food. Like they chew, they drink, they chew, they drink, they chew, they drink. They need to have liquid. And that's really one of the red flags, because they're not able to efficiently manage the food well in their mouth. So that's a physiological thing that's stopping them from being able to adequately progress.
Is that easy to fix?
Yes, that's you go to somebody that does what we call a frenulectomy. They essentially can clip that piece.
Yeah.
But that's not the end of the story. I'll have parents that will say, oh, that's great. We'll get the frenulectomy, which is like a very quick, laser. Well, though there are a couple of different things. Dr. Miyagi in California does, Dr. Zagi in California. Dr. Zagi, I've been watching with my kids. I've been watching, the new not Karate Kid, the new thing with my family. Dr. Zagi in California has his own special method. But that's different. You also can go and do, and I refer to somebody in Manhattan over here. But just because you get a frenulectomy does not mean that you then are all good and done. You have to then retrain the muscles how to work and move, because the muscle patterns have been established. So that's another thing that could cause difficulty with feeding. You have the sensory piece. There are some kids from a sensory standpoint that just don't like the way the food feels in their mouth. And when you chew, every time you chew, the food changes, and that can be disruptive for them. You can have children who had a negative experience, and that so their feeding is very complex. It is for people that love it, like I love to eat, but we can't really understand it. But for the kids that it comes more difficult to, it's a lot of systems integrating. It's a lot of muscles integrating. It's not as easy as you'd think.
Well, I think it's interesting because, life is just a host of miracles, right? Like when it doesn't work, you start to unravel what's not working, and you realize how many systems have to work together for everything we do. But feeding is not something that we talk about often. So, maybe a family has been accommodating to that kid for all these years, and now they're about to go off to college, and they're thinking, I'm going to have to send my kid care packages every day so that they eat. So what do you do when when a kid comes to you before they're going to college? What's the treatment?
So what I love about the kids I just had somebody that ended up having to go and get the frenulectomy because it turned out she was tongue-tied. And I spoke to the pediatrician, and she's like, really? She's like, you think? And I'm like, I think I know. So we went and we did that. And now I'm working with her, and it's a lot. The best thing about working with the older teens, they're super cognitive. Like it's not like, when you're working with a 5-year-old, you're sit back down. After we do this, we'll be able to, blow the bubbles. But I don't have to do that with the teens. Like they're intrinsically motivated. They want to go to school, be independent, meet new friends, and be able to do whatever the kids are going to be doing. So, I ask them what foods they want to eat. I make suggestions as to what I think will be easy foods based on their system. Um, and that's where we start. I mean, the ones that I'm working with now, like one, we're starting on bacon because bacon, for whatever reason, with picky eaters, I don't know what it is. They do well with bacon, even though it's not the healthiest choice. It is something, and I feel like with teenagers, like bacon is, like they put bacon on burgers, they put bacon on toast. Like I do avocado because I feel like avocado is a good, like avocado toast. Like you can do avocado on its own. You could,
So when you say you do bacon and you do avocado, is there is it kind of like I can't remember what it's called in psychology, like
a desensitization kind of thing. These kids come to my office with these foods and we eat them together. They bring like 6 foods each session, a half-hour session. And what's very
let me just ask you this question that Helen has. If it's a sensory issue, how do you get them to eat?
So that's an excellent question. And we don't go to just eating the food. In other words, you're right. If it's a sensory issue and the kid's like, absolutely no way, I'm not even going near that, of course, they're not going to eat it. With my program, the program that I created, these kids are very in on the conversation. And when the kids are a little younger, like 10, 11, 12, 13, mom is in the room. My 17-year-olds that can drive and going to college, they drive themselves to me, and the parents are as much apart or as little apart as the child decides. But the kids, I look at what they already eat and I help make suggestions based on their current foods. And I talk about what the family eats because I think that makes a difference. I can suggest like a quesadilla, but if the family's like, we don't ever go eat quesadillas, right, then like it's useless. And we don't start with eating, like we start with preparation. I mean, I had a client that one of the ones that are going to college, and she came, she was so proud that her mom was going to work and she prepared everything. She cut the avocado, she got it ready, she put the lettuce in the bag, she made the homemade dressing because she had come up with, these were the foods that we were targeting. And she had toasted the toast, and her dad had come into the kitchen and said, you prepared all of this, like with your mom gone? These were new things for her because she doesn't touch vegetables, and just the process of having to prepare them and bring them to me. Did she eat the entire avocado toast by the end of the session? No, but she ate a quarter of it because it was, once the kid is bought into it, in other words, once they decide, that very first session after the eval, I say to them, look, is this something you want? Are you intrinsically motivated to expand your palate? Is this something that you're interested in? Because if they're not interested, if they don't feel like this is stopping them from doing anything, those older kids, those 17-year-olds, those 18-year-olds, that there's nothing I'm going to be able to do about it. But if they feel like, I'll say, you're going off, you're going to live on your own. Your parents, there's only so much you're going to be able to do, but you are going to be with your meal plan. There are only going to be so many options. I can't imagine you're going to have unlimited funds to be able to go and just get what, like you're going to go on a date. At some point, whatever the motivating factor is, and they usually buy in. And I teach in a way that feels safe. Like you say stop and I stop, and I hold the parents at bay. I am very strong. Okay,
so let's talk about the parents for a second. Like, I think for many of us, it's easier to just kind of give in and create a world where that kid can get what they want without having a fight at every meal. Is that really destructive?
Well, fighting at every meal is not good. And the pressure, right? So that you don't want. And you certainly don't want the pressure either. And clearly you're building in opportunities because they're sitting at family meals and they're engaging. the way that I do it is essentially I give incremental homework. So back to that other woman's question, like if we're doing something like lettuce, the child might only get to the point that she's licking the dressing off the lettuce. And that's what we do 3 times a week for, a week until we can take a small nibble of it, which usually they will, but I'm checking in for safety all the time. From a parent's perspective, what I say to the parents is, okay, the kid's working on avocado toast with me. She ate a quarter of avocado toast in my therapy room. When you saw that she did that. What you cannot do is the next morning say, hey, Molly, I saw you eat a quarter of avocado toast with Heidi yesterday. Why don't you just have it for lunch today? I mean, that's a big problem because the kids already are working their hardest, working to their potential, overcoming these challenges, and they cannot then have your pressure. Does that answer your question? It's
So
a balance. I kind of act as a moderator.
Okay, so Jill has this comment, which I think a lot of us feel. My teen is expressing herself with junk food choices, and she knows it drives us crazy. Does that fit? Would you be able to reframe that for a parent and work with that, or is that a separate issue?
So it's very difficult. Look, I understand the parent's perspective. I do want to say I'm the parent of 3 children. I have a 16-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 10-year-old. My 10-year-old is difficult. She's challenging with eating. And then my other 2 are decent. So I also do say to parents, take all the guilt away. Some people who have multiple children can see the perspective of that because very oftentimes the other siblings in the house are good eaters, and then they have this one that's a stick out. So it's nothing that you did. When it comes to that junk food, a lot of times, are there some that are better than others? Is there something that you can pair it with? By this point, I don't know, how old is that child?
Jill, you want to tell us how old your Jill Van Pelt Gatsion? And Dana, it's currently recording on Facebook. So as soon as it's over, you'll be able to watch the beginning as well. Well, she says she was healthier when she was younger, and she's a teenager. So 15.
Right.
15.
She's 15.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the nature of the snacks does she eat any other fruits and vegetables and she's just making that choice, or does she not eat the fruits and vegetables? That's the other key. That sometimes if the kids don't have the other choices, in other words, they don't eat carrots, they don't eat cucumbers, they don't eat grapes, they don't eat apples, then they're stuck. Then they're in a stuck situation. If they do sort of eat those other things, then I think that really you just recommend the rotation as much as you can for a healthy body. By 15, I live with a 15-year-old. It's hard to, there's only so much you can. There's only so much.
Her daughter is eating no fruits and occasional vegetables, which is what I had in my house.
No fruits and occasional vegetables. Does she look? Yeah,
that could think about that without focusing too much on this one story. But I think the thing I'm interested in is that Jill's story is so many of our story.
It is,
and we don't know if it's oppositional and you're not the boss of me, and or it's something that you're describing here.
Right. I don't believe that it's oppositional. I believe that there's an underlying reason for it, whether or not, like I said, it's upper airway resistance, whether or not there's a tongue tie piece, whether or not there's a sensory piece that caused such discomfort, whether or not there was some sort of early instance that triggered. And then what ends up happening is anxiety, and then the monster builds, and then they just don't know where to go. So I think that is really the big takeaway. And then you work in incremental steps. If somebody like that, eats also, does she only eat chicken nuggets, or does she eat every kind of chicken, every kind of steak, every kind of, you have to also look at that. Is there variability across Different textures. Will she eat sandwiches? Are you able to take her out to restaurants? Can she hang with her friends and eat whatever is being taken out? Like, and is it only sort of the fruit thing? I don't love the idea that she has not an entire group, but then you might be able to sort of work towards that a little bit better. Like,
Are these people, I mean, I had a kid like that. Other people are saying my kid too. Are you seeing people like this in your practice? Or is this a little bit of a different story?
I do see people like that in my practice, but very honestly, you know how life works, especially with we all choose to prioritize what we're going to prioritize at that time. Do you know what I mean? I mean, if this is causing that child terrible, I also think now there are so many ways, like if you consult like a dietitian, there's so many ways to get fruit. Will she have a smoothie? You know, so maybe she doesn't need an apple,
That's
but
great.
would she drink
Two
the
of our
smoothie?
people came up with that as a question. Someone said, how about a smoothie? And someone else said, will she have a smoothie? So there you go.
Right. So right, like your son doesn't eat tomatoes, but eats pizza. So to me, like you're getting that. If it's causing terrible stress and anxiety on the family, if the parents think my child absolutely won't eat fruit and this is driving me crazy, I need them to eat fruit, can somebody like me help? I can. Or if the child at 15 turns to mom and says, you know what, mom, I'm 15. It's turning into the summer. My friends love fruit salad. Like, I'm getting older. I just don't know where to begin with this. I want help. I want to learn how to do this. Then you can seek help. Is it critical? No. I think that, like you said, we all sort of prioritize.
Right.
I would ask your daughter, if you're in this kind of a situation, I would say to your child, I think that we're coming up on the summer. People eat so much fruit in the summer. You are a teenager. You're going to be going to school soon. We're thinking about these things. Why don't you pick one fruit that feels safest to you? You still, it's not saying that you don't have to have your other stuff. Just, I'll take you to the supermarket. Pick one fruit that you feel like smells appealing, seems appealing, and let's work towards that. And work towards it slowly. At first, it's just cutting it. Then it's licking it. I'm not asking you to eat it immediately. I'm asking you to maybe even take 1 month, explore the fruit. It doesn't even have to be with us in the room. It can just be on your own time in the kitchen. And by the end of the month, can you at least show me that you can nibble the fruit? Give them the control and see how it goes.
All right. Well, this is a hot topic for us. I'm going to end with Robin's comment. My son eats pizza, grilled cheese, plain nachos, fruits, vegetable pancake, ice cream, bagels. He doesn't eat meat. His doctor told me, don't worry about it. He won't starve himself, although family dinners and holidays are awkward. But that's a big group. That's a lot of food your kid will eat.
No, yeah, but that's not a lot of protein. See, to me, that showed there is a possibility of an oral motor problem going on there.
Yeah.
To me, that could be a motor thing. Everything that she described there is very meltable, easy to chew. That would be of concern to me.
And they would, if she came into your practice, the first thing you would do is like to see if there's a
very thorough oral motor exam to see if there's something physical that's stopping him. Yeah.
And are you seeing people who the primary care doctor has said you're fine, and then they come to you and you're more thorough?
I get a lot of referrals from hospitals, like feeding clinic hospitals, that like people don't know where to go. So they'll call the feeding clinic hospital, like anorexia, bulimia, which is not what I do, but they'll go. I have a specialty in ARFID, which is avoidant restrictive feeding intake disorder. And so they send to me, I get sent from other speech therapists that have challenging cases. And then they come word of mouth, pediatricians, endocrinologists. That's where a lot of my referrals come
if
from.
Anybody has a question for you, is there a way to reach out to you, or?
Absolutely. Instagram at HMS Feeding and Speech. And that's my Instagram. And then I also have a Facebook, which is HMS Feeding, or Heidi Miller.
Instagram here.
Yeah, that's fine. Instagram's perfect. I'm on that all the time.
Okay, great. All right. Heidi Miller, thank you so much for being here with us. Really interesting
Thanks for having me.
And it sounds like, if people are worried, looking into it might reveal something. So if you're interested, give a call.
Absolutely. I have a license in Maryland and New Jersey, New York, and pending in Florida. So I can help.
Okay. Do
Take care.
you have a web page? What's your website?
I do. HeidiMillerSpeech.com.
Heidi Miller Speech. It's hard to type while you're rushing here. HeidiMillerSpeech.com. Okay, there we go. Thanks everybody for being here with us. Heidi Miller, thanks so much for your help today.
Thank you.